Here we are, guys. Welcome to the show. This is the Hammerfist MMA Podcast, episode number 2. I am your host, Tyler, and thank you again, everyone, for joining in. Know we've been a couple weeks since the first episode, so thank you, everyone, for sticking it out. But in that time, we've got some excellent, very exciting, and very fun things to go through here in the world of MMA over these past couple weeks and even coming up this weekend. So I'm sticking it out here a little late tonight, guys. Actually, it's about 1:30 in the morning right now, Eastern time. But I'm really excited for this next UFC event that's coming up tomorrow. We've been having some great stuff going on with the Bellator event last weekend, the Nevada State Athletic Commission hearing for everything for Khabib and Conor from UFC 229 just went on, and some penalties were handed out and everything here, I think just this past week, maybe a week ago, 5 days ago, something like that. So I'm going to run through that a little bit, kind of give my opinions on it, and kind of what I'm hearing from folks on Twitter, and all that kind of stuff. And then, guys, we're going to get into what I think will be the most exciting part and what I'm most excited for, this UFC event coming up tomorrow evening. Can't wait to see it. We've got Rafael Assuncao and Marlon Moraes running it back for a second time. I'm very much looking forward to this event, guys. Again, it's going to be back on ESPN Plus again, and I cannot wait. I'm going to go through that, go through the main card, and I'm going to give out some predictions. Yeah, sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not. Let me know what you guys think when we get there. So, first thing, obviously, what you're going to notice, here we are, second episode. Biggest piece of feedback I received from the first was, that was alright, but we got kind of sick of the black background. I did too. The idea was always, hey, we're going to do this in a video format. We're going to have audio, all that good stuff. At this point, we get to use some, I'm going to throw up some different pictures to go along with what I'm talking about. Hopefully, be something a little more enjoyable than just listening to it like the first episode was. So, let's go over the first big thing here. So, last weekend, no UFC. We had a little break from the UFC after the Cejudo Dillashaw card a couple weeks ago. First card on ESPN. It was off for a week, but luckily for all of us MMA fans, Bellator had an excellent event going on. This was the 1 year in the making conclusion to the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix. A new heavyweight champion would have the belt put around their waist, and boy did it deliver. The whole tournament was pretty exciting. And this event in particular, the main card of this Bellator 214 event, was actually really good. So that's where we're going to start right now. So, like I said, as we're going through here, you're going to see some different graphics pop up to kind of go along with what I'm talking about. And to be honest, it's probably going to help me along a little bit too with what I'm talking about. So, boom, let's get right into Bellator 214, guys. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole card again. I'm going to do the same for talking about everything for tomorrow with the next UFC event. Found it to get a little bit long and drawn out when I kind of talked about every single fight. So this time we're going to skip that, and I'm going to talk about, in review, kind of what I found to be the most exciting fights of the event, and those that I am looking forward to the most for the upcoming event. So let's get started right with this one. Like I said, guys, Bellator 214. This turned out to be a pretty exciting event. I was a little disappointed at first. The weekends when there's no UFC event, I'm down in the dumps a little. Just kidding. But I am missing it because I love to watch it pretty much every Saturday night. So last weekend I figure, hey, no UFC, but boom, we got Bellator, and sound like it's going to be pretty good. But as soon as we got into these fights, man, it was great. It was great. It was one of the best Bellator events I think I've ever seen, to be honest with you. So, Here we go. Let's get right into the results, guys. As you can see, they've just been up here for a few seconds. Maybe you've been reading through them. But let's speak to them a little bit. So, main card got started off, and we had Henry Corrales and Aaron Pico. So Aaron Pico, he's a young guy. He's only got 6 or 7 professional fights. Still young in his career, but he has been knocking folks out left and right at featherweight in pretty brutal fashion, which I speak for myself in saying absolutely. That is the kind of fight that I love to see. It's super exciting. That's a huge part of it for me, a huge part of the sport as a whole. Seeing those brutal flash knockouts, as wild as it sounds, I just love it. It's amazing. So, of course, folks like myself are going to be a fan of watching Aaron Pico fight. People started calling him Pico with a P-I-K-O because he was just blasting folks, knocking them out. And this one looked to be no different. So the fight started off, getting into it right off the bat in the first round. The guys are going at it, and boom, Aaron Pico clips Corrales with a heavy shot right to the chin, starts to stumble him, and then the commentators are right along with it, like, oh, this is the beginning of the end, basically. And then that's where the even greater excitement happened. I think it's probably a little bit in the fashion that Aaron Pico, like I said, still young in his career, young in his life even, 22 years old, starts basically coming in closer, and had given a little bit of time for Corrales to kind of recover, it seemed to me. So he starts coming in, and essentially he's getting into a little bit of dirty boxing, like, all right, I'm just going to take the neck, and I'm just boom, boom, boom. I'm just going to keep going until the finish comes. And seemingly out of nowhere, Corrales has recovered clear-headed enough to put in basically this amazing combination, and just boom, right on Aaron Pico's chin. I think it was a right hook, if I'm remembering correctly. It was all quick, and it was multiple shots. It was a beautiful combination. And just boom, you see it right there. Aaron Pico, lights go out. He falls back, and that's the fight. So an absolutely amazing finish. If you guys have not seen the replay of this, I would recommend you go and check out the replay of at least the whole main card, or at least these 3 fights that you see over here. These were all very exciting fights, but this one definitely, and it was a little bit of a surprise just seeing that Pico almost had the finish, but that's just the way MMA works. One shot can finish the fight, and this was a perfect example of that. Pico had Corrales finished. His inexperience played against him a little bit, and I think that's basically what cost him the fight. He came in to try and finish in a somewhat brutal, dirty boxing kind of fashion, and Corrales caught him with a amazing combination and put his lights out. So like I said, guys, you definitely want to check this out if you have not seen it. It's been all over the replays, all over YouTube, everything like that. It was love to see those kind of finishes. It was amazing. So then we come up next to our co-main event of this evening. Now, some folks love the idea of crossover athletes, if you will. So guys coming from WWE or professional wrestling over to the MMA world, they kind of think, well, how is this going to translate? Sure, these guys are athletes, they're all in great shape and everything like that, but things change when you get punched in the face, all right? Let's just say it that way. So the idea is, yeah, you do all this wrestling, it's great, whatever. Some love it, some hate it, but everyone knows it's fake. Obviously it's entertainment. That's what it is. It's combat sports entertainment. So, a lot of people that are more hardcore MMA fans think, well, these guys coming over from WWE, whatever, that's just a spectacle. It's stupid. A lot of people know the story of CM Punk. He basically is the worst example of that, because he just got absolutely smashed in 2 UFC fights, and that was it. He's done with at least done with UFC, probably done with professional MMA. He showed great heart, but he got freaking wrecked. So let's get to this. So the guy coming over from WWE is Jake Hager. Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about wrestling right now, WWE, professional wrestling, but basically I had gathered through the commentary that that's what this guy was coming from WWE. And right off the bat, when you look at the guy, you kind of think definitely super athletic. The way he's built, he's got kind of the tall and slimmer frame for a heavyweight. So we're talking about, I think he's like 6'5" and 225, 230. But you can tell he's pure muscle. He's a pure athletic build. And I always love to see these kind of guys, these type of guys fight, because it's such the way they fight. Usually, it feels like their reach and their frame, and just kind of the way they move is on its own very imposing to the opponent if the opponent is not equally matched in stature. And unfortunately for Jake Hager's opponent, J.W. Kaiser, in that regard, it was not matched. J.W. Kaiser is the heavyweight who is a bit shorter of a guy, more of the dad bod stature, if you want to say, a little more wider than taller, I guess, if you want to say, but certainly still has some skill. Obviously he's in Bellator, he's a professional MMA fighter. But what you may not have known right off the bat, and I certainly didn't know, not knowing much about Jake Hager or WWE, he actually had a pretty, very successful collegiate wrestling career. Actual wrestling. So that's what was being talked about in kind of the build-up and commentary leading up to the actual fight. And really, that's exactly what happened. Jake Hager came in, started showing off some moves, throwing a few strikes, and put in the reach and the frame he had in comparison to Kaiser, showing it off very much in his favor. Within a minute or two, had taken Kaiser down to the ground, starts beating up on him, and very much shows the wrestling skill that he has, putting his wrestling pedigree to work, and immediately is just beating up on Kaiser from the top on the ground. Eventually beats him down very heavily, gets him in an arm triangle choke, and what I really like to see, especially for a guy coming from the WWE, he gets into an arm triangle choke. And with the choke like that, the idea is to have your hips and your lower body on the opposite side of where your arm is putting pressure on the neck, just to give you the most leverage to perform the actual choke. And he basically he doesn't have his hips all the way over. He hasn't fully passed out of the guard of Kaiser. Basically, he's got one leg out and one leg in the guard. And he just cranked up the pressure, and Kaiser tapped. So it was over. It was very exciting. It's very exciting to watch. It was kind of unknown for someone like myself who doesn't really have the experience with current WWE guys, things like that. Doesn't know a lot about them. But to see him come in and again, I'm saying his physical stature and the way he looks and the way he moves is very imposing to the opponent, and immediately it was put to work. So that was a really exciting fight and an equally exciting finish, especially with those kind of little details like that not everyone's thinking about, for him to be able to submit this guy with this choke without the kind of preferred execution, if you will, was a very exciting thing to see. So definitely recommend you guys check this one out as well. Basically, all these fights we're talking about are things I would recommend you to check out replays of. All very exciting. So the co-main concludes, and here we are to our main event. Ryan Darth Bader, excellent nickname, I guess, against the legendary Fedor Emelianenko. Storied career in Russian combat sambo. Obviously a legendary MMA career in Emelianenko. most MMA fans know of him, have seen him fight for years and years. Obviously an older guy, over 40 at this point. Huge amount of experience in MMA, going all the way back to Pride, and before that, doing the whole combat sambo thing. So we'll talk here in just a minute about the whole kind of Grand Prix and tournament format when it comes to MMA, but and we'll actually look at the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix bracket and everything in particular, just to, I'm getting a little nose itch here. Sorry about that, guys. So basically, Ryan Bader, former UFC fighter, ends up making the move to Bellator, and since he got into Bellator, fighting at light heavyweight, he's been smashing, man. He's been destroying guys. A lot of I think it's a little bit of a misconception. Most people are saying, well, he's just washed up in the UFC. He couldn't cut it in the UFC, but he's too good for Bellator, kind of thing. I think that's a little bit ill-stated. I don't entirely agree with that. I think it's just kind of a timing thing, a timing thing in his career. To kind of restate that, it may have been a little early for him in his career when he was in the UFC. He wasn't necessarily doing bad. He wasn't getting destroyed by everyone, but, unfortunately he wasn't to the caliber to stick around, basically, is kind of how it came. So, but yeah, man, since he's been in Bellator, he has just been running through everyone at light heavyweight, and eventually he becomes the light heavyweight champion, and as of current, still is the Bellator light heavyweight champion. Coming against Fedor, still looking for that title in any MMA promotion, essentially. So both of them had a great track through the Grand Prix bracket to get to this finale fight. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this was basically the finale. 1 year in the making for this heavyweight Grand Prix, and it's exciting to see. On one side, you've got this MMA legend who's been essentially chasing gold, bring pride to his home of Russia and all this kind of stuff. And then on the other side, you've got this guy who's a tremendous athlete, a tremendous wrestler is basically what his background is. And surprisingly enough, in the finale of the heavyweight Grand Prix is the light heavyweight champion. And really not huge as a heavyweight, weighing in at something like 225, 230, just really a more athletic kind of heavyweight, and kind of seemed to be all muscle. So let's get to this. What happened in the actual fight? It was really kind of split as far as what people were saying, seeing how Ryan Bader was just smashing through folks, putting on some amazing knockouts, even in the tournament itself, either throwing big, amazing, spectacular knockouts, or just demolishing people from bell to bell with his wrestling prowess and skill. So what happened here? I can tell you this: the fight lasted all of 30 seconds. I don't think Ryan Bader even took one shot, and maybe even only threw one shot. Basically throws what I kind of like to describe as a wrestler's overhand, if you will, kind of with the feint and the delayed overhand. Big sort of combination of a left hook and left jab, if you will. But boom, just throws the quick feint down, and boom, throws the overhand square on Fedor Emelianenko's chin. Boom, he immediately drops back. Bader is just all over him, and if you watch the replay, even kind of looks like he threw a little bit of a couple cheap shots, after the ref was, it's done, and boom, still one or two more quick ones to the chin. Didn't really need that. He definitely finished the fight in spectacular fashion. But that was it, guys. Hey, crazy things happen, but there we have it. And Bellator now has their very first champ, Bellator's first double champ, going from light heavyweight to heavyweight and making it happen. Even more amazing is the fact it was through the Grand Prix, which is a one and done. You win, you move on. You lose, you're done, kind of thing. So it was really exciting. I'll say it again and again. Amazing fight. Definitely recommend you check out the replay if you have not seen it. It's definitely something you want to check out, man. It was awesome. Awesome fight. So, the fight gets done. Bader gets his light heavyweight belt he's already got. Gets his new heavyweight belt to be the champ. And with the Grand Prix, they also get a Grand Prix winner's belt, basically. So he's leaving the Bellator cage with an extra 20 pounds of gold in various spots around his body, both shoulders and around the waist. So pretty cool to see. Now, to that subject, let's talk a little bit about this Grand Prix format, this tournament format in MMA. So I'm just going to bring up another graphic here. I'm going to get rid of that, and let's bring up the bracket. So we'll kind of speak to each of these fights just a little bit, and then I'll kind of give some thoughts on the whole Grand Prix or tournament idea as it relates to MMA. Does it work? Does it not work? What are the pros and cons? I think, well, let's start with the fights. So let's just do a little recap of this. Obviously, you can see this this bracket we have here is just the blank one, but we'll run through kind of what happened everywhere real quick. So as you can see up here in the top left, Quentin Rampage Jackson, and Chael Sonnen, both really well-known guys. And actually, look at the whole bracket here. You've got 8 guys, all pretty exciting fighters at heavyweight, and then Bader at light heavyweight. Pretty good-looking bracket right here, guys. So, first fight, we had Quentin Rampage Jackson and the man himself, the dirtiest trash talker in the MMA game, Chael P. Sonnen, from the mean streets of Oregon. West Lynn, the mean streets of West Lynn, Oregon, bringing it down. And what happened? Back and forth fight, but primarily dominated by Sonnen. Chael Sonnen wins by unanimous decision. And let's take note, this began in late January of 2018 at the Forum in Irvine, California. So that'll kind of come full circle. We'll see how this whole event played out. Literally took, basically exactly a year, give or take a day or two. Next fight in the tournament, we had Matt Mitrione and Roy Nelson. Gotta say, man, I always loved watching Roy Nelson fight. Obviously, like many of the other gentlemen you see pictured here, former UFC fighters as well who have made the move to Bellator. But Roy Nelson, man, big country. Just love the nickname, love the attitude, love the idea behind it. Seeing him get a huge knockout win and then jump his, unathletic looking body up on the side of the cage and rub his little Buddha belly and all that nonsense. Always putting on a show. So, unfortunately for him, he ended up losing the fight against Mitrione. I think Mitrione won via a split decision, if I recall correctly. Next we had the legend again himself, Fedor Emelianenko, taking on another legend in his own right, Frank Mir. I think the fight lasted all of a minute. Emelianenko walks away with the knockout win. So here we are, we're almost down from 8-4. And then in even a more exciting and more surprising finish, in May of last year, we've got Ryan Bader, again, light heavyweight champion, and at this point, guys, moving up to heavyweight, taking on King Mo. And I think this was about 19-20 seconds of a fight. Bader got a super quick knockout. So another exciting fight there. Coming up, we had the semifinals, and at this point, we've got Chael Sonnen and Fedor Emelianenko facing off. Sonnen was putting in some work, honestly. This was a bit of a back and forth. Sonnen was putting in some work on the ground, showing off some wrestling, which, of course, is his background as well. And if anyone who has seen the fight will say there was a point when Sonnen essentially had Emelianenko's back, almost as if he can start to get in a rear naked choke or some other form of submission, or just kind of start beating him up from the back. He does this weird little roll and ends up kind of just rolling off of Fedor. And shortly after, they're back on the feet going at it, and Fedor knocks him out and takes the win. He's going to the finals. Here on the other side, we've got Matt Mitrione and Ryan Bader. A lot of trash talking going on before the fight. Basically what happened is bell to bell. Bader puts in the work, shows off his skills in wrestling, and just dominates Mitrione. He almost finished him with a Kimura and stuff like that in portions of the fight. Basically dominates bell to bell via the wrestling. Takes the win. He's going to the final. Again, surprising enough, guys, this is light heavyweight champ moving up, trying to become Bellator's first double champ. And then last weekend we had it. The fights we just talked about. Then we had the finale. Bader gets the insane 30-second knockout of the legend Fedor Emelianenko, and he is crowned the champ in Bellator. So, what can we say about the tournament layout in MMA? Now, it's a couple sides to it. Let's look at the good of it first. So, in my humble opinion, I think it's a very exciting thing. It's very exciting to be something that you can kind of continuously follow. You can see it progress. You can envision how each of these fights are in your mind going to play out. You can see all the different matchups. You get to envision if one person wins on this side, another person wins on this side, or how things could change. You can kind of start to put together all these, different exciting potential fights in, who's going to make it to the final on one side and who from the other side of the bracket will join them in the final. Looking at all these different kind of things is just really exciting, and it kind of lays a storyline for a long period of time, which is very cool. I kind of love it, but I'll get to the cons here in just a moment, and honestly, I think this is probably a big part of why the UFC doesn't do things like this, and ultimately why it just doesn't quite, work all the way, I'll say. So, like I said, with the time factor, so let's revisit this again, the fact that for this basically 8-man tournament to play out literally took a year. So, what goes into that? While this is going on, are people really as excited about other fights in this example, the heavyweight division, or, any division that this is? How excited are people really to hang out and watch fights in that division that are not part of this? Are they going on as frequently, or are they less frequent due to the fact that, what's truly exciting in that division for that period of time is the tournament? I would have to really kind of think no, honestly. If I'm watching this 8-man tournament progress, and I come across another heavyweight fight, I'm thinking, oh man, I'd so much rather see another piece of the tournament, honestly. It kind of takes away the excitement of, other parts of the division, unfortunately. Now, here's the thing too. When it all kind of relates to this time thing, in a great weight as far as these are concerned, if you ask my opinion. Now, basically, you've got this period of year where you're kind of waiting to find out who's going to be your next champion. So if you're not in the tournament, you have to think, when the hell am I going to get a shot at this thing? I'm waiting a year for this thing to finish. Then I'm waiting for the champion to defend, which is going to be another period of months. Am I the guy that's even next in line out of this? Then you start to argue these points of, well, hell, the guy who lost the final, he's essentially, you would say, second. The guy who he lost or who he beat in the semifinals, maybe he's rallying for second. It feels like it becomes difficult to start the matchmaking process, basically for anyone who is not a part of the tournament. What is anyone outside of this, I guess suggested to be top 8 of the division? What are they thinking? and how do they feel they're going to get their shot. So I think that plays a big part into it. And then as well, this is a little bit more unique of an example, but I don't think it would be too far-fetched if the UFC were to do a lot of things like this. We're in the era of this double champ. I want to be the champ. I want to move up. I want to move down in weight if I'm a champion. Even if I've just won the belt, often these days the next call out is, boom, I won the title at this weight. I'm calling out the champion of one weight above me or whatever. So here we've got the guy who ended up winning the tournament, Ryan Bader. He's the current light heavyweight champion. So what about everyone else at light heavyweight? I mean, now you're not going to have a light heavyweight defense for at least a year, given he ends up winning, which he did. And then you've got, boom, he wins. What's going to happen next? If he ends up taking his next fight to defend heavyweight, you've got another period of months to wait for that, and then another period of months after that to wait. So you're talking about, in essence, could even be a year and a half. Or you're talking about, boom, I just won the heavyweight title. Now I need to go back and defend at light heavyweight. Then again, you're still in this, you still get wrapped up in this time thing, and you start to think, well, he did that. Now when's he going to come back to heavyweight? Makes a whole mess of belts. Ultimately, I think that's why it just doesn't work on the whole. I don't want to say that it's not inclusive enough or some kind of goofy nonsense like that. It's just more that it kind of puts certain things on hold. And for these promotions, I guess, and in particular the UFC, when title fights and divisions in particular, as it relates to title fights and the belt, get put on hold for a prolonged period of time, the fan base starts to get very antsy to say, hell, we haven't seen this guy fight in 6 months. I love this weight division and I love title fights. When is this damn thing going to happen again? I'm getting so sick and tired of this. Stuff starts to get boring. People start to complain, so on and so forth. And again, it is a business. Lest we not forget, it is technically entertainment, and it is a business. So the idea is, how do we get the people to spend the most money we can get them to spend taking part in enjoying this event? So those are just my kind of thoughts on it. Let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the tournament format? What do you think about the Grand Prix? What are your thoughts on why Bellator does it fairly consistently, but the UFC kind of never wants to do so? Love to hear your thoughts, guys. Let's start a little discussion on this. Let me know what you think. Now, all that aside, let's go ahead and get rid of this. Let's move ahead right now to our next topic. So for the past week or so, and going back in time a little bit, the UFC 229 Post Fight Brawl that broke out. Khabib Nurmagomedov has just submitted Conor McGregor in the biggest MMA pay-per-view to date. 2.5+ million pay-per-view buys. Hugely hyped fight. Amazing event in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. Boom, submits Conor McGregor with a choke. He taps out. Khabib is all enraged and upset. Conor, you trash talk my religion and my family and my country and this and that, and took it personal, is what it felt like. He took it personally. So he just cut it loose after the fight, starts jawing at McGregor. He's down on the ground recovering from nearly being choked out, and he goes over to the side of the octagon. One of Conor's teammates is jawing at Khabib. He ends up climbing the cage, leaping out, jumping at this guy. Big fight breaks out. Khabib's teammates hop in. They start fighting with McGregor back and forth. It's just a whole mess. It's not something for the view of the sport that is needed at all. When stuff like this happens, it doesn't necessarily help the view of MMA as a legitimate sport, I'll say. Now, is it exciting for fans? Sure, honestly. Will it in essence sell more pay-per-views next time? Does it build hype for a rematch? Absolutely. Just look at the example. You go back to April of last year. Conor McGregor shows up in Brooklyn and throws a dolly at a bus, breaks a window. It was a nightmare at the time. They were talking about what's wrong with McGregor. He could be in trouble and all this kind of stuff. And what ends up happening, they lead it up to this fight, and it's in every single promo. and it's used to sell this fight for the bad blood between McGregor and Khabib. So ends up playing in favor. And if you just imagine, you end up getting a Khabib and Conor McGregor rematch, what do you think the promos are going to be, guys? It's going to be all about this post-fight brawl. So let's look at what actually happened. Let's get on with it. I'll quit jawing here for a minute. So I might need to just refer to some of my notes I got here. And I'm not recalling the exact date that this happened. Basically, it was like a week ago, which, by the way, holy shit, can you draw this damn thing out anymore? I mean, I know it was around the holidays, but come on. It happened on October 6th of last year. Ends up getting, Khabib, I don't want to come. Conor, I don't want to come. Whatever the hell happened. I mean, damn, does anybody even care about this thing anymore? Hell, took freaking, over 3 months for the damn thing to happen. I mean, geez, come on. Let's get on with it already. It gets delayed a whole bunch of times. So here's what happens. Khabib, essentially seen as the aggressor in the whole thing, if you will, receives a 9-month suspension and a $500,000 fine. Pretty hefty, if you ask me. Disclosed $2 million purse, though, so, whatever. The guy obviously became a major superstar after winning the fight. So I don't think the money's an issue for him. Allegedly, the guy makes like $700,000 to shoot a few-minute commercial or something like that. So, people are saying, well, Nevada State Athletic Commission, they want to reduce his 9-month suspension to allow it to be a 6-month suspension if he does a little anti-bullying campaign or whatever. Essentially, people are saying, well, they should in essence just pay him an extra $200,000 for him to do it, since he makes so much damn money doing other things. Basically, he says, whatever, I don't care. His teammates, his cousin, Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov, who was involved in this, and teammate Zubara Tukagov, they're both concurrently basically handed 1-year suspensions from the NSAC and $25,000 fines. Khabib has stated he will pay both of their fines, and he also refuses to fight again until they are off suspension, essentially. So Khabib, he will be eligible to fight 9 months retroactive to October 6th of last year. That would be July 6th of this year. He's eligible to return. He basically says no. Once my other guys can fight, are allowed to fight as well, I'll be back. Claims he doesn't want to fight in Nevada again. I guess Vegas in particular. Says he's a big fan of Madison Square Garden, and he plans to return at that time, November of 2019. So, unfortunately, we still got a way to go. That'll be more than a year since we would have had a lightweight title fight, with him obviously being the champion. So we'll see. But I think that's probably what's going to happen, unfortunately. So, McGregor, what happened to him? Not really seen as the aggressor in the brawl, but, he played his part. He did fight back, if you will. He's basically given a 6-month suspension, retroactive again to the 6th of October last year, and a $50K fine. So, collectively we can all scoff at the $50K fine. Pocket change to Conor McGregor, obviously. 6-month suspension, really not a big deal. It had been a, period of, on the scale of years, not even months, since we last saw him in the octagon anyway. So, I don't think anyone was really expecting him back right away anyway. So, April 6th of this year will be the 6-month suspension for him. So let's take a little eye to it, their responses. So obviously after both took to Twitter, Khabib, he says politics forever, short and sweet, but hey, it fits, with what he's been saying throughout this whole thing. Forget about it. You want me back, let my guys back in too, and I'll decide if I want to come back, kind of thing. McGregor, on the other hand, we can see some humble attitude, and is it real? Is it just, I'm going to play the PC game, I'm going to play the PR game. I am thankful for the Nevada Athletic Commission's fair assessment and handling of the brawl incident. It was not my intention to land the final blow of the night on my opponent's blood relative. It's just how it played out. I look forward to competing again soon. Thank you all. What do I think of that? Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of, funny. I think we now see Khabib seems to be a little more ego-driven in essence, while we have Conor McGregor, MMA king of trash talk, a lot more humbled and straightforward and politically correct, if you will, in his response. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Drop me a few notes in the comments. Start a little discussion on it. Let me know what you think. In my opinion, I think it makes sense. I'm not surprised. I think the $500,000 fine for Khabib is hefty. I feel like maybe they've been keeping an eye on his Victory World Tour since he basically won the fight, and he's been running all over Europe and Africa and everything, helping folks, having parades and all kinds of shit. So it's assumed that plenty of money comes with that. No surprise. So, anyway, that being said, our next topic, guys. Boom. This is what we got going on here. Within a period of about 24 hours now, this lovely event will basically be done, I would guess. Coming to us live from Fortaleza in Brazil, UFC Fight Night, Rafael Assuncao versus Marlon Moraes 2. Very much looking forward to it. Co-main event, Damian Maia. Feels like it's been forever since he's fought. He only fought once last year. Finally coming back against the male version of Cyborg, Lehman Good. So let's check out these fights, guys. Like I said, I'm really only going to kind of dive deep into the main card. I feel like it got a little long-winded in the first episode of the podcast here, where we went into, I guess, literally every single fight on the card. So we're not going to do that again. We're just going to kind of look at the main card. Though I do have one prediction on I'll say a dark horse undercard fight that I think is going to be quite good. So let's get right into it. This main card is going to kick off. I think it's either 8 or 10 Eastern. This is going to start. Apologies, I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but just Google it. It's one of those. Don't forget, guys, if you have not signed up for your ESPN Plus free trial, you should definitely do it. Gives you a week free. This is another one to check out. Another good one to do it for. I think, obviously most people probably burned their free trial, as I did, on the Cejudo Dillashaw event. But, I've already signed up. It's like $5 a month, so not bad. I canned my freaking, at this point, somewhat garbage UFC Fight Pass subscription for ESPN Plus. It's kind of a toss-up. If you want live events, ESPN Plus. If you have the time to or prefer to rewatch basically replays and stuff you haven't seen with a massive collection, Fight Pass is where it's at. So, that being said, boom, let's get into this card, guys. Pardon me. Dang. Looking forward to this. So, this first fight, I'll be honest with you, these two ladies, women's strawweight, I hate to say this, but I'm really not familiar with either of these ladies. Sarah Frota, sorry, sweetie, you don't even have a photo for some damn reason. So, maybe a UFC debut, I would guess. Livia Hinata Souza and Sarah Frota. Both decent looking records, so I figure this one should be pretty good, but I hate to say again, I don't know too much about either of these ladies, so can't comment on it too much, but I'm sure it'll be a decent fight. Second, we've got a light heavyweight fight, return of two gentlemen, Johnny Walker, Whiskey Man himself, against Justin Ledet. So, Justin Ledet, he's had at least one fight in the UFC. It's neither of these guys' debut. Ledet, I think, has had 2 fights in the UFC, and Johnny Walker, to my recollection, has had only 1, but it was a good one. I'm actually really looking forward to this. So Johnny Walker, his last fight was against a guy I actually really enjoyed watching coming up in the UFC, and from the Ultimate Fighter, Khalil Roundtree Jr. Did well on the Ultimate Fighter, and then most recently, apart from Walker, had fought, what is that guy's name? Kickboxing legend guy, Gokhan Saki, and heavily favored to beat Roundtree, and then Roundtree puts a straight right into his nose and puts him out. So very exciting. So anyway, this guy, Johnny Walker, he is another one of these athletic guys, and I love to see these guys with this kind of frame and reach and everything. Tall guy, athletic, slim build, an excellent reach, John Jones style, if you will. Love the name too, Johnny Walker. I mean, come on, for a Brazilian. Love it. So anyway, Johnny Walker's previous fight, I think it was his UFC debut. He came in off of Dana White's Contender Series, and a way to describe the term Hellbow is basically what he did with Roundtree. Had him in the clinch, and then boom, 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 just puts his lights out with some straight up Hellbows. Elbow to the face in brutal fashion, and put Roundtree on his ass. And it was amazing. And I cannot wait to see this fight. And especially I cannot wait to see Johnny Walker fight again. And that's my prediction, guys, for this one. I think Johnny Walker is going to walk away with a TKO. I won't say a KO. I think he's going to kind of put Ledet down and end up the fight being stopped rather than actually knocking him out. So next one here is down to lightweight. Guy that many people know, Charles Oliveira and David Tamer. So 2 guys known for some very different things, but both pretty popular in their own regard. Charles Oliveira, super popular in that he's got the UFC record for submission finishes. Always seems to put on a great show. And David Tamer, unfortunately for him, kind of has the reputation of the guy on the Ultimate Fighter saying some shit about, watch your underwear, I'm going to fuck you, to a guy. Yeah. Decent fighter, but his broken English failed him there, unfortunately. And in a pretty funny way. So, sorry, David Tamer, but my prediction is that Charles Oliveira will submit you either via guillotine or rear naked choke. So watch your underwear, because Oliveira is going to fuck you, I think. Alrighty. Now, I don't know why the poster was shown the way it was, and I can't believe I actually referred to this next fight as the co-main event and forgot about the actual amazing co-main event that we're going to have. So next up, Damian Maia and Lehman Good, welterweight. So Damian Maia, veteran and somewhat legendary career in its own regard. Amazing jiu-jitsu fighter. Very exciting when you get to see him in these grappling exchanges, because that is truly his strength, is grappling and obviously jiu-jitsu. Lehman Good, decent fighter as well. Damian Maia, though, you look at the past year, he fought once in 2018, lackluster showing and somewhat boring main event against upcoming title challenger Kamaru Usman. I'm not the biggest fan of Usman either, and honestly, I haven't really ever been the biggest Damian Maia fan. 2018 was a very poor year for him, had 1 fight and 1 loss, like I said, a boring fight. Go back to 2017, he got bloodied and beaten to a pulp by Colby Covington, and prior to that, I think it was, or the fight before that, The very unfortunate and booed out of the arena fight with Tyron Woodley for the welterweight belt. So past few fights for this guy have been unfortunate. And my prediction is going to be the same here, that Lehman Good will finish this fight and will TKO Damian Maia, in my opinion, in my prediction. So I think that's what we're looking for here. Lehman Good is a pretty good striker. Goes way back too. Some definite veteran experience in this fight. Lehman Good was the original Bellator welterweight champion. Has been on the Ultimate Fighter at least once. I think he basically lost the fight to even get in the house. So unfortunate, but still, guy's been in the UFC for 3-4 years now. Like I said, don't forget he's the male version cyborg. So boom, here we go, guys. Getting into the good shit now. Co-main event, featherweight. Veteran and very well-known Brazilian homecoming for Jose Aldo, the King of Rio, and the opponent, Renato Moicano. So a couple different points of view here in this fight, or guys at, I guess I'll say, different experience levels, different points in their career. Jose Aldo essentially has said, I've got 3 fights left in the UFC on my contract. I plan to fight them in 2019. I'm not so much chasing the belt anymore. I'm just looking to fight it out, and then I will be retired, basically. Definitely a storied career. Definitely a veteran, especially at featherweight. This guy is only 32 years old. He'll, maybe be 33 by year's end and being retired. That's somewhat young, some would say, for retirement age. Maybe not the earliest, but certainly not the latest. Early 30s is, when a lot of guys hit their peak. But I can't say enough good things about the guy. He's had some amazing fights. I think this will be an amazing fight. This is kind of a lead up to a title shot at featherweight, I would say. Moicano served as the backup for Ortega and Holloway in their fight. Unfortunately, did not make championship weight. Came in at 146, but wasn't necessarily needed in that setting anyway. I think this could be quite the striking matchup. Moicano is kind of on the side of, now is my time in building my career, chasing that dream of a title shot and attempting to get that belt from Max Holloway. I think if Moicano wins here with an exciting finish, I think he's the next one. I think if he wins, he's the next one. If Aldo wins, I'm not horribly interested in another Aldo Holloway. That would be the trilogy. I'm not totally interested in that. But that does not influence my prediction. That prediction is that Moicano will defeat Jose Aldo. I don't think it's going to be a submission. I think it could be a TKO, though. That's what I'm feeling. Moicano by TKO, calls out Max Holloway, and that ends up being the next fight. Unless Holloway moves to lightweight, which very well could happen. Either way, I think Moicano, after this win, next in line for the belt. So, that brings us to our main event, guys. Rafael Assuncao and Magic Marlon Moraes. So, both guys coming off of wins. Looking to be a very exciting fight. This is at Bantamweight. Kind of seeing this essentially as a Bantamweight title, move forward to a title fight. One guy, loser, kind of eliminated from a title shot and fighting his way back against TJ Dillashaw, current Bantamweight champ. Depending what happens with the whole Cejudo thing, if they end up running that back, whatever. Both these guys are, the winner of this fight, in essence, is going to be very deserving of that next title shot, in my opinion. Think about this. Marlon Moraes has had a great showing so far in the UFC. his last fight against Jimmy Rivera was a main event. Basically, 30 seconds in, throws a little feint and a switch kick, smacks Rivera to the head, puts him on the ground, jumps on top and starts beating the sides of his head. He goes limp for about a second, and the fight is stopped. So that was a very exciting fight. But what do I think is going to happen here, guys? Now, I will tell you this. I live in an area just north of Atlanta, Georgia, north suburbs of Atlanta, and this gentleman, Rafael Assuncao, actually fights out of a city right next to mine in Alpharetta, Georgia. So very exciting. I kind of drive by the area where his gym is, frequently throughout going to work and all that kind of stuff. So I think I got to root for, in my case, the hometown guy. Obviously, he's a Brazilian, and he's kind of going back to home territory for this. Same with Marlon Moraes. But I think I got to pull for, I guess I would say, my hometown guy here, Rafael Assuncao. Now, don't be fooled, though. Marlon Moraes, very exciting fighter at bantamweight, honestly. Super athletic. Both guys super athletic, looking to be a great fight. But I'm just feeling a Rafael Assuncao win via decision, and followed by Assuncao calling out current champ TJ Dillashaw, pending whatever happens with the whole Cejudo Dillashaw thing. Are they going to run it back? I guess we'll see what happens. I kind of feel like, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving for a little bit. Let's slow down the champ thing and guys calling for rematches right away and all this kind of stuff. Let's keep some things moving. I kind of like to see things just progress a little bit. I like to see new guys get that title shot. Always exciting to see a guy challenging for the title for the first time. He's got that confidence, bringing that attitude to the fight. That's kind of like they say. That's why they feel it's so hard to kind of like Anderson Silva did, to defend the title so many times. It's the guy who's coming in to challenge has this intensity. It almost feels unmatched. This is the biggest. This could be the biggest moment of his life, the biggest moment of his career. He has reached the pinnacle, and if he can just surpass it and get that win, dreams will be fulfilled. He will be the champion. That means add it to the legacy bucket, add it to the list, the money, varying levels of fame, but it does mean absolutely a lot for a fighter's career to be called a UFC champion. So, very exciting. In short, very, very exciting main and co-main events. Both of these basically being title call-outs for the winners and title eliminators for the losers. So I can't wait to see it, guys. Like I said, don't forget ESPN Plus. If you have yet to get your free 7-day trial, definitely want to check it out. But all that being said, guys, I think that is going to wrap us up for the second episode of the Hammerfist MMA Podcast. Again, I am Tyler. Just want to throw a few more things out there. We have decided, if you don't know, essentially what accompanies the podcast is the blog that's been going. Put some posts on there fairly frequently, just about, love to talk about rumors of fights, events coming up, doing predictions, something I love to do, something I like to take a look at. I'll make it very clear and honest. I am not an MMA analyst by any means. I don't have a ton of technical MMA knowledge. I'm not an MMA practitioner or anything like that. What it is I am just a huge fan of MMA, and I love to speak to other people that are huge fans of MMA. You don't need all the technical details. You don't need all the analysis. It's just a matter of, do you love to watch it? Do you love to read about it? Do you love to talk about it? And that's really kind of what this is all about. In doing this podcast and doing this blog, hey, it's just talking about it, discussing things that we love to see. And the great thing about MMA is it's almost always going on. Basically every weekend you got a new event. And it's just so much fun. And I've had a great time doing it. All that being said, basically, We've made a few upgrades, as you can see right down here. Yeah, right there. Boom, guys. We have gone away with the whole free .wordpress .whatever garbage. Check it out. Looking legit these days. The look and feel of things has not changed too much just yet. I'll be making a few tweaks and improvements on the blog itself, but number one was, let's get a real web address in here. Boom. Hammerfist-MMA.com. Unfortunately, without the dash was taken, so unfortunately couldn't get my hands on that, but very, very close, and it's going to do it, guys. Hammerfist-MMA.com. Check it out. Hit me up. Check out the blog. Check it out, like I said, rumors, upcoming stuff, just predictions, all kinds of fun stuff, all kinds of great fan talk about MMA, leaving some of the analysis and some of the stuff like that out and just getting to the core of it. What do we enjoy? And something we love to talk about. That's what it's all about. That as well. Boom, right over here. Hit me up on Twitter. Love to continue the conversation. Let me know what you thought of the second episode of the podcast, guys. Again, too, always looking for ways to improve and always love to hear your feedback. Hit me up on Twitter at Hammerfist_MMA. Let me know what you think, guys. I would love to hear it. Really hope you've enjoyed listening here and checking it out with the actual video, not just the black screen and audio. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for the second episode, guys. And we will catch you next time. Let's play this outro. Boom. Peace.